10, West Cutting. It's almost as if they wanted fans of the film to like hunt them down and like host a barbecue outside in the parking lot. In both Toy Story 2 and 3, their old address of 1001 West Cutting is tucked away where you'd least expect it. In Toy Story 2, there's an ad for Al's Toy Barn and the address is 1001 West Cutting, and then in Toy Story 3, there was a sign above Andy's door that says the same thing. We get it! We know where you live now, except they have since moved to Emeryville, and we know that because they have a reference to that in other films like Cars. I wonder if the studio has ever worried about people figuring this out and storming the castle to show their love. I'm pretty sure they'd welcome it. They'd be like, "Ah, cool, you found us. Here's the golden ticket. We're gonna put you in the next film." That'd be cute. Number 9, AI spiders. Animation in itself is like a painstaking process. Having to draw intricate lines, layers of animation with subtle changes is a tedious process. Pixar didn't want to add any more stress to the team by having to create intricate little cobwebs in the corners of one of their scenes. But what they did to solve the problem is kind of terrifying. Technical director Hasuk Chang created AI spiders that were designed to weave the webs just like real spiders. All the animators had to do was tell the spiders where they wanted the webs to be, and off they'd scatter. Without the spiders, it would have taken animators several months to create the webs because they'd have to do one strand at a time. So whenever you watch the film, keep an eye out for cobwebs and remember that they were created by real computer spiders. Does that make it kind of terrifying? Yes. Incredible? Absolutely. Number 8, the new Buzz. The amount of thought that goes into every Pixar film is one of the biggest reasons as to why the Toy Story series is just that good. They don't miss a thing. When Woody is first introduced to Buzz in the first movie, by way of the angle we know that Woody isn't exactly buzzed to see a new toy join the group. After all, that is the whole point of the first movie. So Pixar knew this shot would be important later when they introduced Buzz to a newer version of his toy self. Buzz then goes on to personify the internal battle of what we all endure within ourselves, against the person we want to be and the person we are. Can we be better? Or is the battle simply about realizing that we, with our peeling labels and scuffed plastic armor, have always been enough? Number 7, Clue. This next one is scary brilliant. This is honestly going to change the way I watch Pixar films going forward. I've never seen this one, so this one was so fun to hear about. Seriously, like I was sitting in my chair and guffawed when I saw this. During this scene, in Toy Story 2, when Hamm is laying out the mission for tracking down Woody, he is standing on one of the best Easter eggs ever. Of course, Hamm uses the board game Clue to discuss a detective mission that will put these toys to the test. Imagine being in the writer's room for that. They must have had an entire team dedicated to coming up with iconic Easter eggs. I'm speechless. This is perfect. If you're curious and you have Disney Plus or you have the movie, the timestamp is 18 minutes and 31 seconds and you'll see it. Brilliant. Number 6, what happened to Sid? For anyone who was around when the first Toy Story came out, Toy Story 3 was an emotional journey, to say the least. It was supposed to be the last film, and believe me when I say there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. And then of course they made a 4th movie, so it was a little like anticlimactic. Kind of. But I'm sure I wasn't the only one who was wondering what happened to Sid? Well, when the toys were accidentally tossed into the trash pile, Sid nearly becomes the terrifying antagonist again. He is indeed the garbage man! You can tell due to the nostalgic skull t-shirt he wore in the first film, he's wearing it again while he's like dancing out to beats while he's doing his job, having a great time. I'm glad he found success. Good for you, Sid, doing some good for your community. But looks like he just can't help nearly ruining the lives of these toys. Glad he never got away with it though. Number 5, Foreboding Future. Another really popular film in the Pixar realm is WALL-E, about a robot left behind after we humans destroyed the world. It's also a really cute love story and it makes my heart go, Despite WALL-E being adorable, it also depicts a terrifying image of our future. This next Easter egg hints at a darker future for our lovable Toy Story world. The batteries that fuel our beloved Buzz Lightyear are the same brand, the By and Large Corporation, which is the same company that created WALL-E. BNL created WALL-E to clean up planet Earth, and they also created the same batteries that fuel Buzz. It's a terrifying thought that among the trash WALL-E cleans up is one of our beloved toys. forever without a home. Number 4, so many Andys. I honestly didn't think this one was true until I went back and watched it, and yeah, it's pretty terrifying. When the kids are arriving for Andy's birthday in the first movie, about 10 minutes in, you can't tell which one's Andy because they're all Andy. Every single one of them is Andy except for the one kid by the staircase in the blue hat. The rest of the kids are all like carbon copies of Andy. Short buzz cut hair, round-headed ball caps. Andy is the one with the Woody hat. But I guess in an effort to save some time, they decided to press copy paste and save time on editing. Is this some kind of nod to the fact that some kids just look the same when they are that age, or was it just a way to save time? Don't believe me? Time for a rewatch and check the scene at 10 minutes in. Number 3, always alive. The reason I think Toy Story is so successful is that as kids, toys are some of our best friends and we give them life. Whether during an hour playing Barbie or in 10 minutes before bedtime, they were alive to us. In the Toy Story films, the toys are sentient beings, meaning that while we look away, they move, feel, think just like we do. But when we play with them, they're just that, toys. That was the kind of rule the film established. But during the film, viewers noticed a subtle breach in Woody. In one scene while Andy's playing with Woody, there are unexplained adjustments in his facial expressions, and we aren't sure why, which viewers found a little disturbing. Number 2, The Shining. One of the studio's core directors is Lee Unkrich, who has been involved with many of Pixar's heavy hitters including Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, and Toy Story. He also happens to be a massive fan of The Shining, directed by Stanley Kubrick. He's even made a website dedicated to it, so it should be no surprise that he added in a few Easter eggs to pay respect to his favorite film. The most famous Easter egg is the carpet in Sid's house, which mirrors the carpet featured in the hallway of the film. I just watched The Shining for the first time this past winter, okay? There's lots of movies to catch up on. And I was extremely creeped out by Danny's imaginary friend, Mr. Tony. Well, Lee finally brought Mr. Tony to life, sort of, by making the janitor at Sunnyside Daycare Mr. Tony. And last but not least, if you are still with us guys, make sure to give us a like, comment, and subscribe and let us know what you think so far and drop in any hints of what you've seen in the past watching Toy Story. Let us know. Number 1, Lost Story. Did you know Toy Story 2 almost didn't happen because it got deleted? About a year before the final release of the film, they were looking back at the file directory, saw 40 files one second and then 4 the next. All hearts stopped in the office that day as 90% of their work was deleted and they didn't have a backup at the studio. Luckily, one of their employees was working from home after they had just given birth, so she had copies at home of the film so she could work. This blockbusting mistake was a result of a faulty code which they referenced in the film itself. RMRF was the code that caused the mass destruction of Toy Story 2, and they set it as the license plate on the car that takes away Bo Peep in Toy Story 4. So that was kind of confusing, but you get what I mean.
Starting off at number 10 now, we have Same Faces. At the end of 2017, The Mirror posted an interesting theory about the original Toy Story movie. Have you guys ever noticed how similar the faces look in that movie? Now when I say that, you may think I mean the toys' faces, right? I mean, they're all basically plastic toys. In real life, plastic toys all kind of have that similar vacant expression, a bit dead behind the eyes. However, this story pointed out that the toys actually had quite different looking faces. It was the children that looked creepily similar in the original Toy Stories movie. Early on in that movie, we see Andy playing with his toys. Later on, we see Andy's friends attending his birthday party, and they look very similar to Andy. Like, almost identical. They also look just like Andy's neighbor Sid, the boy who likes to torture toys. What's going on here? Why does every kid in this movie have the same face? Some people say this is just a product of animation at the time. Although Pixar's animation still holds up almost 25 years on, they were still limited by what they could do. Perhaps that is the reason. Others say that this isn't true, because they managed to make the toys look all so unique. Some say that the humans in the movie are actually the toys, and that what we think of the toys are really the living people, if you can get your head around that. That would also explain why they're able to move and talk, but it also produces a whole bunch of other questions. Next up at number 9 now, we have Andy's father. Fans of Toy Story will notice the absence of Andy's father throughout the Toy Story movies. Some people say that his parents just weren't together, or maybe they split up, but others think that Andy's father died. One Reddit user suggested that Woody was the last toy that Andy ever received from his father before he died. Andy's mother noticed how much Woody helped Andy through the grieving process, and so she kept buying him more more and more toys to help him deal with the pain. This is why Andy's toys remained in his toy box even when he was 18 years old. They weren't just toys to him, they were his last connection to his father. Now despite all of this, Andy decided to give them away when he went to college, and we see how much it really hurts him to do that. If this theory is true, then the toys in Toy Story helped fill a very dark place in Andy. They were much more to Andy than just childhood toys. Moving on to number 8 now, we have the Immortals. This is a very weird theory that came from Reddit and was written by Nameless88. He said he thinks the toys in Toy Story are immortal. They cannot die. This doesn't mean they can't be destroyed, it just means they can't die of old age, so to speak. This means they will outlive every owner they ever have. The toys' time with Andy will just repeat all over again when he gets old and dies. This is quite disconcerting when you think about the tortured toys in the first movie that Sid made that are very much still alive, albeit horribly mangled. Those toys are technically still alive. Perhaps they even feel the same pain as we do, and it will never ever end unless they're incinerated. Taking them apart won't kill them. We once saw Mr. Potato Head able to feel and use his body parts even though they weren't anywhere near him. This means that as long as any part of a toy lives, they will live on forever. Another creepy thought is that if humans one day go extinct, the toys may not. They may just live on forever, kind of like WALL-E, which is another well-known Pixar movie. The toys will live on for thousands, millions, or perhaps even billions of years, unable to end their lives unless through fiery suicide. What a horrible, horrible thought. Alright, next up at number 7 now, we have Sid's family. Many people see Sid as a villainous little kid who deserves no sympathy for creating the mutant toys. Well, there is a theory that Sid is actually the product of a neglectful family. One piece of evidence for this is the rocket that was mailed to him at the house. In the 90s, ordering things online weren't as simple as they are these days. Sid must have had one of his parents order it for him, and they must not have cared that it was a life-endangering rocket that could have easily hurt their small child. Also, some people point to that one shot of the dad apparently passed out on the couch surrounded by cola cans. Now they say the cans only say cola on them because Pixar didn't want to show what the cans really were. They were beer cans. Of course, having a few beers and falling asleep on the couch isn't a bad thing by any means. I've done that a fair few times. But people who push this theory say that it could be a sign of the father's alcoholism and of Sid's neglect. Moving on to number 6 now, we have the toy corpses. This is a pretty dark theory that contradicts the immortal theory we heard before. In July 2018, Baron Stigman tweeted out that his daughter had ruined Toy Story for him forever. Apparently, she said that if one of the toys died, then Andy wouldn't know and he'd keep on playing with its corpse. Before long, this tweet blew up with people sharing their shock and horror at this theory. One user said this thought had scarred them for life. Another thanked them for ruining Toy Story as well. What about you guys? Is that thought gonna just creep you out every time you watch Toy Story? Maybe it's done that to me already. Coming in at number 5 now guys, we have the Illuminati. This is perhaps one of the most bizarre theories I've heard so far in anything actually. I can't even quite wrap my head around it, but here I go. It was written on the Brainbender site by David B. He says that the plot of Toy Story 3 is a clever predictive programming of what the Illuminati would do if they were in power. They say that, as Alex Jones predicts, if nuclear bombs ever went off in American cities, the Illuminati would use it as an excuse to start the North American Union, which is meant to be the daycare from Toy Story 3. At first, this union, like the daycare, will seem like a good thing, but eventually it will lead to a nightmare scenario. If you aren't sold on this theory yet, and trust me, neither am I, they provide one last piece of evidence. Lotso the bear made a comment in the movie about constructing a pyramid with himself at the top, just like the Illuminati pyramid.
It's Lotso! He's made us into a pyramid, and he put himself on top!
Anyone concur with Ken?
If you want to read this full story, then please go and check it out. Perhaps you can make some more sense out of it than me. Moving on to number 4 now, we have special training. This theory comes from Reddit user Octogenarian Sandwich, great name. He made a post where he addresses the issue about Buzz pretending to be a toy. So in the first Toy Story movie, you'll remember that Buzz thinks he is an actual space ranger. He refuses to acknowledge that he is a toy. It takes a long time before Woody and the others can convince him. Okay, that's fine, but but why does Buzz still freeze up whenever humans come into the room? That's something only toys do. If he thinks he's an actual space ranger, then he should just keep acting normally. Why is he freezing up like that? Well, this theory states that he was actually trained to do that because he's a unique toy. Perhaps every single Buzz Lightyear is a specially trained spy. Stay with me here. In order to fit in, Buzz has to do what every spy does, fit in with the locals, even if this means pretending to freeze in position when a human enters the room. If this is true, then who programmed all the Buzz Lightyears, and where does this theory even end? Moving on to number 3 now, we have Sid the Savior. So this is about the second time now where I'm about to make you sympathize with Sid. This is the theory. Sid knows that toys are alive. He learned this after they attacked him on Woody's command in the first movie when Woody was trying to save Buzz. Woody did that because he also knew it was the only way to save the mutant toys from being mashed together with parts that weren't their own by Sid. However, Sid's new knowledge has led him to become a garbage man by the time we get to Toy Story 3 so that he can actually save the toys. He does this to make sure all the toys that get thrown out aren't chucked into the incinerator or just thrown onto a dump. People say that he takes them back to his home and he fixes them up. They might still be sort of twisted mutants, but at least they're alive. That's a nice thing, I guess. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Evil Woody. This is a theory posted by Reddit user Itchy Rabbit. They suggested that Woody is not so different from Lotso the evil bear in Toy Story 3. The only real difference is that Woody had a kid. Andy. This is the only thing that saved him from being as evil as Lotso. If Andy had bought a new Woody toy in the first movie, then Woody would have turned out just like Lotso, hurt, bitter, angry, and wanting revenge on the world. Both Woody and Lotso are leaders and they go through a lot to try and get back to their respective kids. For those people who see Woody as a perfect being, Itchy Rabbit points to Woody's darker side in the first movie when he started to feel like he was being replaced by Buzz Lightyear. Luckily, everything turned out alright there, but perhaps in a parallel universe there may be a Toy Story where Woody is the evil toy that needs to be overthrown. And finally at number 1 now we have the Holocaust. Now this is at the number 1 spot for a reason. It's not my theory. My job in this video is to just present theories that other people come up with, and this is definitely the darkest one that I've seen so far. It came from John Hoffman of UGO, who said that the toys being abandoned by Andy for college is similar to Jewish people being abandoned by countries as the Third Reich began to spread across Europe before World War II. Woody gathers the toys to try and form a plan. They refuse to be abandoned and give up. Buzz Lightyear steps forward and suggests they hide in an attic. For Hoffman, this drew parallels to many Jewish people who tried to hide in attics from the Nazis, most famously Anne Frank and her family. Perhaps the darkest comparison is that they are being taken to Sunnyside Daycare, which is meant to be a supposed concentration camp, where they find themselves trapped among others in the same situation as them. I won't go into any more details there. It's a disturbing comparison to say the least, perhaps even an unnecessary one, but it's one that exists online, and so there you go. I laid it out for you today. And starting off at number 10 now, we have the death of Woody. Ever since Toy Story 4 was announced, people have been asking why. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're all excited for another Toy Story movie, but the end of the third movie did seem quite final, didn't it? Even hardcore fans have been wondering why there is really a need for a fourth movie, and some think the only thing that can justify it is the death of one of the main characters, and many of them are leaning towards Woody. The synopsis of the movie contains the line, "Every ending is a new beginning." Now, some fans think this has sort of a ominous death vibe to it, and that the ending refers to Woody. Also, the movie poster looks quite ominous. We see Woody by himself walking off into the distance and tipping his hat as if to say goodbye. Moving on to number 9 now, we have Wheezy Villain. There's a theory going around that Wheezy, the squeaky penguin toy that the other toys tried to help in the second movie, is actually the villain of the whole thing. In fact, some go as far as to say that he caused all the bad things that happened to the toys in that movie. The main crux of this argument is that Wheezy used to be Andy's favourite toy for a while before he was forgotten about and put on a shelf. In the first movie, we see how Woody got very jealous of Buzz, and so imagine how Wheezy must feel about all the other toys in the second movie. People think it was this jealousy that resulted in him putting Woody in the yard sale in the hopes he would be gone forever and he could finally be Andy's favourite toy once again. Moving on to number 8 now, we have Creepy Woody. This is a true story. Woody was initially going to be a ventriloquist dummy. That was the idea the team came up with. Then it was suggested that instead of a ventriloquist doll, they turn Woody into a cowboy. Everybody loves cowboys, right? Well, Luckily, they did go with that, obviously. I think every Toy Story fan can agree that a creepy ventriloquist doll Woody would have been quite a disturbing sight to see. I don't even want to think about that. Next up at number 7 now, we have toy amnesia. That's what I'm calling this theory, posted to Reddit by user Tommy M. Walker. Now, he suggested that the toys in Toy Story will never remember Andy again. He says that the toys have personalities and memories that are imprinted on them, and once they have a new owner, their former memories are wiped away. This would be scary if true, especially for the 4th movie. As proof, he puts forward Toy Story 2. Jessie's last owner, Emily, loved her for a very long time, grew up, and then donated her. Eventually, she was found by Al, who put her in storage where she completely forgot about her former life and only remembered when Woody arrived on the scene. If this is true, then do toys have memories wiped when they get new owners? We saw Toy Story 3 end with Andy handing over his toys to a new kid. Does this mean the toys will now forget Andy? That's quite a disturbing thought for every Toy Story fan. Coming out number 6 now, we have the war. This is another Reddit theory put forward by user Space Communist. He said that the first 2 movies are set during the space race of the 1960s, hence the old technology and obsession with toys like Buzz Lightyear going off into space. Then though, about 10 years passed and we're suddenly in Toy Story 3 where there's now laptops, online gaming and modern cars. It's a huge leap. It looks just like the past decade has been in real life. Where did all this technology come from? Well, this guy thinks a world war took place over the course of the movies. The technology advanced so rapidly during the war that it explains the leap we see between the movies. Further proof, he points to the maps we see. They seem to show the world map as very different to ours. Countries aren't the same, borders are just all over the place, almost as if a massive war took place. It is a crazy theory, but then again, we are talking about a world in which toys can talk, so I guess anything is possible. Moving on to number 5 now, we have Buzz Lightyear dies. So we talked at the start of the video about the possibility of Woody dying in Toy Story 4. Well, I'm afraid this sort of morbid speculation is not over. Some people think it's Buzz Lightyear that's going to get the chop, so to speak. This is mainly based on what Tim Allen, who voices Buzz, said in an interview on The Talk. He said, "I gotta resist getting emotional. I don't want to give it away, but this is an incredibly great story. It is so emotional, it's so funny, it's so big. The idea they come up with, I am startled. I couldn't even get through the last scene. I would love to be a Washington leaker. I just can't do it. I can't give any more away. They've got great characters, but a couple of scenes towards the end were really hard to get through. I couldn't even get through the last scene." Now, is that because Buzz dies? That would be a pretty good reason for why he couldn't even do the last scene. What do you think? Next up at number 4 now, we have Real Mutants. For a children's movie, those mutants in the first Toy Story were pretty creepy, I won't lie. Some of you may have found comfort in the fact that those creatures don't exist in real life, obviously, and that they only exist in the movie. Well, sorry to burst your bubble, but that's not entirely true. In the early 90s, the Unknown Museum in Marin, California, featured a host of mutant toys as part of their exhibition. It just so happened that this exhibition was seen by the Toy Story animators. They were inspired by what they saw and created their own ones in real life, which in turn will go on to inspire their designs for the mutant toys in Toy Story. That means that somewhere out there, tucked away in a dark and dusty box, those mutant toys may really exist, waiting and waiting. Coming in number 3 now, we have Andy's money. This is a Reddit theory put forward by user Just Embarrassing, who said that Andy doesn't really love Woody. Shock horror. He just knows the monetary value of him. In Toy Story 2, we learn that Woody used to be part of the hit TV show Woody's Roundup, along with Jessie, Stinky Pete, and Bullseye. Andy must be aware of this. He even refers to Jessie as Bazooka Jane. The only way he would have known that is if he looked it up. If he did that, he'd know that these toys together would be worth a lot of money. Perhaps that's why he cared so much about them. He just wanted them to increase in value to the point where selling them would get a lot of money for he and his sister, as well as their mum, who is presumably a single parent. Now, this isn't to say that Andy doesn't like Woody, but maybe the money is a huge bonus, shall we say. Moving on to number 2 now, we have Woody's girlfriend. This one may only be scary to those of you who believe in the true love of Woody and Bo Peep. It was actually a pretty close call. It almost didn't happen. When Pixar first wrote Toy Story, they didn't want Bo Peep to be Woody's girlfriend. They actually wanted it to be Barbie. I know, Can you imagine? Woody and Barbie. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you see it, Mattel, the owners of Barbie, didn't have much faith in Toy Story, and so they didn't give permission for her to be used in the first movie. For many Toy Story fans, this was a very close call, and a scary one to think that Woody and Barbie were very close to being an item. And finally, at number 1 now, we have the power of imagination. This theory is based on the growing assumption among a number of Toy Story fans that the reason toys can walk and talk is solely down to the kid's imagination. It is literally the child's own imagination that gives them the ability to walk and talk. Support for this theory grew after the release of the Toy Story 4 trailer, which showed a new toy made out of a spork and some household objects, claiming that it didn't belong there and it isn't a toy. Well, perhaps that means that kids can bring any object to life, even normal household ones. Perhaps this is a clue as to what is to come in the next movie. If a child has an imagination that's strong enough, they can turn any inanimate object, even a weapon, into a walking, talking entity with its own free will. Now that would be an interesting story.
Starting us off at number 10 is that Wheezy is actually evil. Remember that cute little squishy penguin toy named Wheezy from Toy Story 2? Well, there's a theory out there that he is actually the bad guy of the movie, and not Al from Al's Toy Barn. Wheezy was one of Andy's favorite toys once upon a time, but eventually was forgotten about and left on a shelf to get covered in dust and lose his squeaker. While Woody and Buzz's rivalry first started in the first movie because Andy forgot about Woody while he was playing with Buzz. That made Woody get jealous. Obviously Woody ended up overcoming that jealousy, but maybe Wheezy didn't. Maybe his jealousy actually fueled a plan to make Woody be at the yard sale and get snatched up by some toy collector, with Wheezy making it back in the house himself and no longer having Woody for competition. This theory really hurts me because I remember feeling so sorry for Wheezy when I watched Toy Story 2 for the first time. I still remember seeing it in theaters, and he was so lovable and he was just so hurt that you just fell for him. But now I'm gonna need to watch Toy Story 2 again. Coming in at number 9 is Toy Story Illuminati. That's right, there are many people online all around the world that say Toy Story 3 is one huge reference to the famous conspiracy group known as the Illuminati. How does this make sense? Well, many believe that Lotso, the film's antagonist, brainwashed Buzz Lightyear by resetting Buzz from play to demo mode. One of the other big pieces of evidence that supports this theory is a line of dialogue that is spoken by the Ken doll. He says, "He made us into a pyramid and put himself on top." It's a bit of a weird line to have in a scene, and many connected back to the Illuminati symbol of the triangle with the eye in the center of it. So does Toy Story 3 allude to the Illuminati? You tell me down in the comments, because I don't think I can watch this one again after that heartbreaking ending. If you haven't seen it yet, be careful. That one hit way too hard the first time around, and I don't think I'm not ready to relive it yet. Coming in at number 8 is Woody and Mr. Andy. Now, who is Mr. Andy? Well, I'm referring to Andy's missing father in the films. Many believe that since Woody is an old toy from an old TV show in the 50s known as Woody's Roundup, that maybe this toy was given to Andy by his father, and maybe his father has since passed away, meaning that Woody is not just a fun toy, but also a sentimental and special possession of Andy's father. Man oh man, did that one get really sad just really quick. But you know what? I got beef with this theory because in the movies you can see Andy with bed sheets and tons of posters and stuff in his room that have Woody plastered all over them. Would a TV show from the 50s still be making all of that merchandise in the mid-90s? I don't really think so. Or is it his father's? Maybe? I don't know, but I mean, I can't see him giving Andy literally everything that has Woody on it and letting him still use it. Because I mean, that's going to be some valuable stuff. And that stuff has got to be rare. And lastly, would they have made character bed sheets back in the 50s that look as good as what they do in the film? I don't know. I'm not really sold on this one, but let me know what you think. Coming in at number 7 is Jessie and Mrs. Andy. Now, who is Mrs. Andy? Well, this time I'm referring to Andy's mom. There is a theory out there that cowgirl Jessie is actually Andy's mom's old toy. Where's the proof? Well, we all know that Jessie's former owner name was Emily, and Andy's mom's name is never specified in any of the films. But in one of the flashbacks through the films, Emily can be seen wearing a Jessie cowgirl hat. Just like the hat that Andy is seen wearing in the movies, as it looks a lot more like Jessie's hat than it does Woody's. So does that make the Toy Story 3 ending even sadder? With not just Andy saying goodbye to his childhood playmates, but also Andy's mom saying a final goodbye to her toy in that special time in her life? My God. What am I doing to myself here? Coming in at number 6, we have Woody equals Lotso. That's right, without Andy, many think Woody could have ended just up as antagonistic and evil as Lotso. No, not Woody! Easy, let me explain. Lotso, the big pink stuffed bear, handled his leadership at Sunnyside Daycare much like a dictator. He sucked. Lotso was accidentally abandoned in his owner's old home, and when he finally got to see her again, he found out that she had a new favorite toy and that he had already been forgotten. His little pink stuffed heart was then shattered and led him to being the bad guy in Toy Story 3. Now, if Woody didn't have Andy for his owner, many believe that Woody could have become just like Lotso. Woody's story in the first movie begins with his jealousy towards Buzz, but Woody changes his mindset because he didn't want to lose Andy the way that Lotso lost his owner. So, Woody could have been just as evil as of a character as Lotso in another rendition of the story, but he didn't. Or maybe the story hasn't ended. Coming in at our halfway point is poor Sid. There's a theory out there that Sid wasn't actually a bad kid at all. Maybe he was just a product of a poor home life. One reason is that back in the 90s, it wasn't as easy to just buy whatever you wanted online. So some think that the possibly life-threatening rocket toy that is meant for much older kids was mailed to him after his parents ordered it and didn't care that he was too young or nor that he was left alone with this dangerous rocket. There's also a scene in the movie that shows Sid's dad passed out in front of the TV with cola cans strewn all over the floor. But maybe those cola cans were actually wobbly pops and not just normal pops, if you catch my drift. So maybe Sid began experimenting and building and taking apart toys and acting out because this was just a desperate call for attention and love that he never got from his parents. Who knows? And to be honest, I think there are extremely rare cases of bad kids. Something always sparks bad behavior, but hey, I never met Sid personally, so you be the judge, maybe he is a bad guy. Coming in at number 4, we have Sid is a garbage man, and this is where I'm gonna say that he's not a bad guy now, because in a scene in Toy Story 3, we can see a garbage man pick up a load of garbage all the while he is rocking out to some awesome tunes. But if you look closely, you will see that this garbage man is wearing the same t-shirt that Sid wore as a kid. But this guy seems happy and in good spirits, so how is this Sid? Well, many people think that Sid changed his ways after learning that toys could talk. And the reason he became a garbage man was that so he could save all of the forgotten toys out there so they don't get incinerated at the city dump. Or he can even fix them by making some weird mishmash toy combos like the baby head with spider leg or the fishing pole with the legs. You know, maybe he just wanted to give some love to some toys that weren't necessarily gonna get it anymore. So Sid is a garbage man for now, because this next theory actually gets much darker. Starting us off in our top 3 at number 3, we have that Sid is actually dead. Whoa. Okay, that escalated quickly. I mean, one minute he's a garbage guy, next minute he's no longer with us. If you watch Pixar's 2017 movie Coco, there is a scene with the skeleton on stage that has the exact same t-shirt as Sid from Toy Story. Toy Story 3 came out in 2010, so that means Sid worked as a garbage man until his untimely death that led him to be a rocker in the afterlife, in Coco. Maybe, I mean, Coco does take place in Mexico and Toy Story is definitely not set in Mexico, so maybe it's just a small Easter egg, but if Sid is indeed the rocker skeleton, then what happened? Coming in at number 2, we have immortality, the exact opposite of our number 3 spot. Many people believe that the toys in the Pixar universe are actually immortal. Since these toys are not actually organic living beings, many believe that these toys could in fact live forever and that the only way to meet their demise is if they are melted down. Which when you think about it, actually makes that scene in the first Toy Story with Sid burning Woody through the forehead even scarier. That's one way Woody would actually meet his demise, so yikes. The other proof is that Woody, Jessie, and Bullseye are all toys from the 50s and they just keep being passed on to new owners and never really seem to age. Especially with Rex's cameo in WALL-E. Maybe this means that he's actually aware that humans are gone and now it's just robots. Oh, yikes. No, for that reason alone, I would never want to be immortal. And finally, coming in at our number 1 spot is one of the darkest theories out there. It's that Toy Story 3 is actually an allegory to the horrific and disgusting events of World War II. One possible piece of evidence that supports this theory is that when Buzz suggests that the toys hide out in the attic to avoid being donated is a reference to Anne Frank and the events that she talks about in her diary, how they hid away from all the evil people. They also believe that the toys that were sent off to Sunnyside Daycare was also an analogy to people being sent away to the disgustingly horrific camps run by the followers of This is about as dark as they come here, folks, and I for one can see the similarities, but I don't know if this is intentional. I think the events of World War are just so sad and horrific that they are so well known that many things can be alluded to being inspired by them. Or maybe many stories and events are secretly inspired by them and are self-conscious without us even fully realizing it. Either way, this one is crazy dark and probably ruined your childhood just a bit, so I'm sorry.
Coming in at number 10, we have the same face theory. Have you ever really looked at the faces of the children in Toy Story? It doesn't take too much sleuthing to see that there's pretty much no difference between the faces of any child in that movie. I mean, seriously, it's creepy. Back in 2017, The Sun came out with a striking theory stating that Andy, the main character of the beloved film series, seems to have the same exact face as all his friends. But the theory doesn't just stop there. Upon a deeper dive, they even noticed Sid, the movie's rough around the edges bully, is also identical to the other children in the film. I mean, how did we not notice this when it came out? Some chalk it up to the fact that it's just early CGI, or simply that they didn't think people would pay too close attention to the background characters and therefore didn't really put too much effort into the defining characteristics. But all in all, you can't deny it's super weird to have a bunch of clone children running around the town with no adult in sight, seeming to care or notice at all. Next up, coming in at number 9, is Wheezy the villain of Toy Story 2? We all love Wheezy. How could you not love an adorable singing penguin? He couldn't hurt a fly, you'd think. Well, one Reddit user, The Circle of Knife, has reason to believe otherwise. They explain that even though Wheezy wasn't in the original Toy Story film, in Toy Story 2, it's mentioned that he'd been up on the shelf for months. This means that Wheezy was only played with for a few months before his squeaker broke and he was sent to the dusty shelves. The user continues that Wheezy would have been watching Andy play with all the other toys and brooding in jealousy for the life he once had, unable to speak or intervene in any way. The theory continues, stating it's Wheezy who discovers the yard sale, frightening all the other toys and hoping that Woody's heroic nature would try to save Wheezy and probably end up getting sold instead. While there are a few plot holes here, it's an interesting theory to imagine that adorable little singing penguin as a maniacal plotting villain, but I'm not sure it totally pans out. Coming in at number 8, the toys don't come alive until played with. A pretty popular theory among Reddit users. Some believe that the toys only become alive once played with. One Redditor explains, quote, "I think that the toys don't come alive until they're physically handled by an owner. After that, they are aware but take on the persona of how they were made." The Reddit user Mr. Nostalgia continues to say, quote, "Buzz is a Space Ranger doll, thus he believed he was a Space Ranger. Forky being made from the scraps and the trash, thus he thought he was trash." This theory could explain why all the Buzzes believe they were in hypersleep, or why Woody wouldn't remember anything about his existence prior to Andy. Next up at number 7, Andy's dad is dead? While at first this theory seems pretty dark, looking back at the Disney canon, it's not actually too far-fetched. We see Andy's mother, his sister, and even a dog in the movie, but many have pointed out, where's his dad? The most popular online explanation for Andy's dad's absence comes from an alleged story told to consultant Mike Mozart by one of the original movie writers, Joe Ranft. According to the tale, in an early draft of the script, there was a backstory where Andy's dad had polio as a child and left Woody to his infant son after he died. One Reddit user, Just a Typical Ginger, outlined the fact that they think this theory is true due to the kind of toys Andy gravitates to. Quote, "Andy has clearly attached himself to Woody and Buzz. In all of the play scenes, they are clearly strong adult male figures. One could almost call them fatherly. While there is no real proof to back this story up, it certainly would answer a lot of questions, but sadly I suppose we'll never know if he's in the CIA or sadly long gone." Next up at number 6 is the theory that Jessie belonged to Andy's mom. In this Toy Story 2 we get to meet Jessie, the cowgirl. She's one of the latter backstories as we learn that she was neglected by her owner Emily, thus tainting her relationship to future owners. But what if she wasn't a brand new addition to the family? What if she was once Andy's mom's beloved toy? Theorized one Reddit user, Beryllium Extract. They go on to explain that while we get only one short glimpse of Emily, she looks quite similar to that of the mother character, and that Andy's old red hat looks just like a larger version of Jessie's. We know Emily was supposed to have a matching hat to Jessie's. Could it be the same one? A hand-me-down situation perhaps? The saddest part of this theory is that Jessie doesn't recognize Emily all grown up, so she still believes she was abandoned by her. And even sadder is that Andy's mom, the alleged Emily, just didn't even have a deep connection with Jessie like that of Andy to Woody, and simply sees her as just another old toy. Coming in at number 5, Mr. Potato Head is not a singular entity. At
At first, you probably don't think too hard about Mr. Potato Head's seemingly never-ending stream of body parts falling off of him. But fans have pointed out if you start to question it, it gets a little weird. Upon closer inspection, fans have pointed out that it appears like all his body parts keep moving despite their detachment. And to make matters worse, it seems like he can feel the removed body parts, even when they get far away. One Reddit user, Primetime22, theorizes that Mr. Potato is not a single personality, but is actually multiple appendages being led by the mouth. They point out, quote, his appendages all move by themselves while his body is just a means for them to work together. But this raises an even bigger question, like, where's his brain? The user continues to theorize that all his body parts move and think independently, but that his mouth is like the sergeant, barking orders to the group. Certainly an interesting theory, and you know, it might not be the worst thing in the world to live in a hive mind. Next up at our number 4 spot, Toy Story 3 is about the Illuminati? One of the more ludicrous conspiracies I came across on Reddit about the Toy Story universe was the theory that Toy Story 3 contains symbolism connected to the Illuminati. Yes, you heard that right. The hard hitter of this theory relies on Lotso Huggin Bear, who plays the maniacal villain of the film. In the movie, Lotso is seen switching Buzz Lightyear's settings from play to demo, thus causing some Reddit users to think that he was brainwashing Lightyear to help spy for him, a behavior that is attributed to the Illuminati. But the theory doesn't stop there, with other fans pointing out the dialogue spoken by the Ken doll in reference to Lotso, quote, he's made us into a pyramid and he puts himself on top. Well, it's certainly an interesting theory for a toy to say, but has many claiming it's a metaphor for the image commonly associated with the conspiracy. Next up, coming in at number 3, we have a pretty dark one, the toy corpse theory. Now, this one kind of cancels out the previous theory, stating that toys aren't alive until played with by a child, but this dark theory was first posted by a Twitter user at Digby3 saying, quote, my daughter just ruined Toy Story forever. She said if one of the toys died, Andy wouldn't know, and he'd carry on playing with its corpse. I know, super creepy. But let's think about it for a minute. If Andy doesn't know that his toys come alive when he leaves the room, logically, he would have no clue they could die. So technically speaking, yeah, he could totally just be playing with dead toys unknowingly, but do you think all the other toys would really just sit around and watch as their dead friend was being flung around the room? Some fans aren't so sure, as they pointed out that the toys would probably either bury or at least hide the toy, as to not have to watch, or worse, play with their dead friends. Next up at number 2, this one could potentially ruin your childhood. All the toys are secretly vampires? Okay, stay with me, I know it sounds crazy, but that's what we're here for. Toy Story 4 director Josh Cooley can't take credit for this one, but when asked about if the toys were immortal, he told Digital Spy, quote, I heard somebody say the toys are vampires and instead of blood, they live off the joy of children. Okay, back up. Does this mean that the toys are actually draining children of their joy? When you start to think about it, there are a few points that make sense. Sid, for example, he was so mean to all of the toys, turning them into Frankensteins and monsters. What if he wasn't the bully all this time? What if it was because he knew the truth and he was trying to punish them for stealing his joy from him? While far-fetched, it wouldn't be the most insane theory the internet has conjured about the Toy Story franchise. Which brings us to our final number 1 spot. That Toy Story 3 is a metaphor for... Now I won't lie, this definitely takes the cake for most terrifying theory and certainly seems like an insane comparison to make to me, considering it's one of the worst occur in human history. The theorists state that Woody has a speech that seems to parallel that of survival, and others point out that Buzz Lightyear's suggestion that they hide in the attic to avoid being donated evokes the Anne Frank story. And lastly, they draw a likeness to the toys being sent to Sunnyside Daycare, representing people being sent off to during World War II, where nearly every toy meets its demise by being incinerated. Now, for me, I don't know, this one seems like it's just a bit too far-fetched, so I'll definitely be praying that this one is not real.
Starting off this list at number 10, the new character, my new favorite Pixar character, Forky. Well, did it seem like Forky is a bit suicidal? Every chance he got, he tried to kill himself.
Everyone, I want you to meet Forky.
Golly, Bob Harris. Look how long his arm
arms are.
Theories surrounding Forky suggest that Forky wants to kill himself because he just doesn't fit in. He is just so different from everyone else. I mean, even in that small clip I showed you guys, one of the toys mentions how long his arms are, and he looks very different from all of the other characters. I loved Forky in the film, and I think adding a new main character to the franchise was a very bold move, but they did a fantastic job. But isn't that funny having Forky always trying to commit suicide? I mean, this theory is pretty dark. A war might be coming, and this scary theory is up next at number 9. Servant versus the Master. This is a talked about theory that suggests that the toys in the movie are starting to rebel against the humans, as we saw in the 4th installment of the Toy Story franchise. We saw many toys, including Woody, not wanting a child, a master if you want to call it that. The toys are not feeling the need to serve as dummies anymore. They are evolving independently. It's just a matter of time where the toys will start attacking the humans for freedom, and maybe the roles will be reversed. Yeah, I would be freaking out as well, and I would be listening to the toys because there are way more of them than there are of me. The toys in number 4 at the beginning felt like it had no control whatsoever of their own destinies. They only had one purpose, and that was to be slaves to the humans until the end of the video the revolution started. Toys didn't feel the need for humans anymore. Toy Story 5 can get pretty dark if Pixar for some reason wants to go into that direction. Moving into number 8, there have been many fan theories talking about the toys being immortal, so if a toy became bad and starts hurting people, we might not be able to destroy them. Throughout all of the Toy Stories, especially Toy Story 4, we have had villain toys. We had Gabby Gabby and her really scary looking security dolls. We'll talk about them later on in this video. Well, Reddit users have been talking about the immortality of these toys and what happens to the heroes after their owners passes away. Would they become depressed and try to take their own lives, but they can't? One Reddit user was saying, what does this mean for mankind? What if all humans die out? The toys will be the ones running the world. I mean, who would have thought? Moving into number 7, remember that Gabby Gabby character we talked about? Well, some are calling her one of Pixar's best villains.
Oh, the store is about to open. Don't worry, we'll take you where no one will see us.
Oh, no, we can't stay.
Yes, you can.
She might look very innocent on the outside, but I assure you something evil is within. She was able to manipulate other toys into destroying other toys. One of the big plot of the film was for Gabby, who was manufactured with a broken voice box, to get another toy's voice box, and that's where Woody came in. Gabby managed to kidnap Forky and Woody and was able to rip out Woody's voice box so she can have it.
Gee, I wonder if we were made in the same factory. Wouldn't that be something? I gotta say, you are in great condition.
If you're a little kid watching this, that scene, it's pretty traumatizing. Number 6, Bo Peep might actually be the true villain in the movie and no one even knew about it. Bo Peep has actually been absent in the series since the 1999 Toy Story 2 film. So this was the time to bring her back to the big screen, and there was speculation that she would actually return as a villain and a rival to Woody. There were moments in the film like it felt like she could turn evil at any time and become the arch nemesis to Woody, and this plot could set up the next film as well. It would be so easy for Bo Peep to become evil because she's an unwanted broken toy with no motivation to help the world or other children out. She would be fueled by anger and want revenge on the new wanted toys, or even the children for not loving her. In Toy Story 4, it seemed like Bo Peep could have been responsible for some pretty awful things. Some suggest that she stole the voice box from Gabby Gabby, and Gabby is now terrified of Bo Peep and what she's capable of. Also, another theory suggests that she kidnaps all the toys that are unwanted and have them work for her. Moving right along into number 5, Woody and the rest of the toys are like vampires who drain children of their joy. So just when we all believed that these toys were helping the children, they were just manipulating them. And maybe that's why Sid was so mean to the toys, because he knows the truth. Sid was trying to destroy all the toys starting from the very first Toy Story movie.
Well, we have ways of making you talk. Where are your rebel friends now?
Sid was trying to get answers out of Woody because he knows he can talk, and Sid knows that Woody isn't the only evil toy. Number 4. Gabby Gabby's dummy minions are actually hitmen. Gabby hired these dolls as her own personal hitmen, and they have kidnapped and killed many people and destroyed a ton of toys along the way. Also, doesn't these dolls kind of remind you of someone? You know, some character in, let's say, Goosebumps? I wonder if Goosebumps had a problem with this. Also, how many fights have they been in? Because their bodies are so messed up, and it kind of seems like they might have just came out of prison. Moving into number 3, whatever happened to Sid? Evil Sid from the other Toy Story movies. Well, he might have actually been the owner of the antique store, so he brings toys there to die because he hates them all. Going back to Toy Story 3 for a moment, there was a theory saying that Sid used to play with the corpse of the dead toys. And he played with these dead toys in front of the other toys who were alive and probably mortified. I mean, it's pretty morbid when you think about it. Number 2, there may not be another Toy Story movie, and this is pretty scary to me. A lot of people are saying that they shouldn't do another one, and I think this is terrifying to me because I enjoy all of these movies and I want it to continue on and on and on. But I'll probably be like 40 years old before the next one actually comes out. And it's sad to know that Pixar might be ending like this with Toy Story 4 and how it ended. Toy Story did hit records at the box office, which is why I'm actually pretty hopeful that there's gonna be another movie. It's just gonna be 10 years from now. But what did you guys think? You guys who did watch the movie, did you like it? Did you hate it? Or did you not even care about it? Finally, number 1, the children in the movie were actually evil, and they are very powerful. Powerful enough to bring toys to life. The only way a toy can come back to life is from the imagination from the children. The children believe that these toys are alive. Well, if they think that they're alive, why do they constantly try to destroy them and just rip them apart? These kids seem to get the enjoyment of torturing these harmless toys. I know we've been thinking about how many toys were able to come back to life, but let's think about how many toys died because the children killed them. I mean, that's pretty dark. This has actually been seen throughout all of the Toy Story movies. Also, if kids can bring to life these toys, what else can they bring back to life? Children in Toy Story can actually become a threat to society, and the toys in the movie are the ones trying to help the kids with their negative thoughts because they want them to stop destroying the other toys.